Hallihallo, liebe Leute. Hallo und herzlich willkommen zum heutigen Stream, beziehungsweise einen von zwei vermutlich. Und zwar schauen wir uns heute mal das sogenannte Ottovski System an, Kriegsspiel Regelwerk. Bin sehr, sehr gespannt. Er hat einheitenspezifische Würfel in dem System, an denen ich sehr interessiert bin. Ich habe schon unter seinem System gespielt, aber heute machen wir eine sogenannte School of the Umpire, also eine Schule der SpielleiterInnen. Schauen uns das Ganze mal von der Spielleiterperspektive aus an. Und da bin ich wirklich sehr gespannt, das mal zu sehen. Und wir werden dann im Anschluss um 17 Uhr wie gewohnt zum International Kriegsspiel Society Open Saturday Spiel, bei dem jeder und jederzeit einsteigen kann, werden wir das System benutzen, und auch da werde ich Otto dann als Umpire helfen, als Spielleiter helfen. Bin da sehr gespannt drauf. Otto setzt gerade schon ein Spiel auf, sehe ich hier bei Discord. So, for all the English-speaking viewers, welcome to today's Saturday stream. We'll have probably two streams. Right now we're going to run a School of the Umpire with the so-called Ottovski System. Otto from Finland is one of the admins of the International Kriegsspiel Society, and he has developed designed a rule set for Napoleonic Kriegsspiel, which has, and that is what intrigues me the most, unit type specific dice. So for infantry, cavalry, and artillery, there are specific dice, and I'm eager to learn how it goes. So let's see if the table is up. There seems to be no school table, so maybe it's Open Saturday. Nope. Kriegsspiel. There it is. And we'll chime into the voice chat and learn about the password. Hello.
Came from traditional games. Hello, John.
How are you guys doing?
Okay, so we got the tabletop game up. So come over and join the IKS Kriegsspiel Umpire tabletop simulator. So you got tabletop simulator, right? Slipspace Ambassador.
Yes, I do. I gotta boot it up. So one moment.
Okay, good.
What's the password?
It's Kriegsspiel, no capital letters. You should be able to spell it.
Yep.
Nice.
There we go.
And
one slip and sled. Slip and wait.
I apologize. It's such a long name. You can you can call me whatever you want.
I'm gonna call you Ambassador.
Yeah, Ambassador works. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. My tabletop simulator just booted up. So.
Yeah. By the way.
What is it called?
IKS Kriegsspiel Umpire, and password is Kriegsspiel.
Excellent.
Password isn't in capital letters, but the name of the server is. So IKS Kriegsspiel Umpire, password is Kriegsspiel.
Okay, I was thinking, I was misspelling.
No,
but no.
No, the password isn't capital letters. That's what I mean.
Oh, okay, wait, so...
Yeah.
So it's no capitals.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, sorry for mixing you up. Okay. Shouldn't even told anything about the title of the server, just confused you. By the way, every time I alt-tab onto my other monitor, we're going to get like 5,000 ping, so prepare for that, because internet isn't the best. When we umpire the Kriegsspiel game, we're going to we have someone else host the server.
Yeah, sure.
So, Ambassador, are you getting on?
I am trying to connect, but it's
okay.
giving me. I think it's just my computer being slow. There we go. Now there it is. Hopefully this should work.
It's funny how you remember those games. I mean, we are playing so many games, and I still remember the attack around Neustadt and this hilarious cavalry chase there.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna load the end game save of that, since we're going to be using this animation. Oh, let me copy this cheat sheet.
Well, I know you were comparing it to Dungeons and Dragons, and it's the same for me with that, where even though I'll have many other stories that I make, I'll remember past ones. So
yeah.
This is that, except with military simulation thrown in.
There we go. Also, looks like Gen TJ9 is going to be joining us. I'm gonna ask him how long he's gonna take. So, any idea? If it takes only a few minutes, then we can wait for him to come on in.
Yeah, sure.
So, I've given you guys some resources. Okay, he said give me 5 minutes. Alright, we'll start in 5 minutes. Oh, he just woke up. Very nice. Okay, so... Man, this guy's sleeping until 4 p.m., imagine. Not like he's from another continent or something. But yeah,
so where are both of you from? If you don't mind my asking, I'm just curious.
I'm from Finland.
No, I'm from Germany.
Oh, cool.
I assume you are
I'm from the US, if my accent doesn't give me away.
Yeah. America. This game is going to be our 4th of July celebration in advance. Going to be celebrating the 4th of July by playing some Napoleonic Kriegsspiel set in Western Germany. Okay, but while we wait for Gen TJ9, so I put out some resources into the general chat of the Discord, and don't mind me pointing at something on the map by pressing tab, because that's me just alt-tabbing, most likely. But,
okay.
So on my other monitor, I have my Ottovski tips for umpire / system guide open, and I've scrolled down to the Ottovski System part, and I'm going to be quoting some things from this as we go on.
Okay.
So that's a good resource. It also has a lot of other stuff about umpiring. Since Jan is going to be umpiring with me in today's game, which is going to be beginning in 2 hours, we're going to first go over the dice, because Jan has umpired quite a few games.
I think my sound cut out.
Oh.
Hello?
Hello. Oh, rest in peace. Well, yeah, we're gonna go first over the dice, so you understand.
Yeah.
Oh, and Gen TJ9 is here. Very nice. Okay, boot up your...
My sound, I cannot hear anything, so...
okay. Well, that's a shame. Gen TJ9 just... is there like anything... Gen, boot up your tabletop simulator and join our tabletop game.
Okay, what's the information?
Its name is IKS Kriegsspiel Umpire, and password is Kriegsspiel, no capital letters. And let's get this show on the road.
Sorry for being.
There we go. I fixed my audio.
Okay.
Sorry
Right.
about that.
No,
I
it's
don't know what you were just saying there, but hello,
And
Jen, TJ9.
yeah, I'm gonna
Morning.
give you oh, never mind. Actually, I'm not gonna give you the cheat sheet because it's in the module. But yeah, so we're first going to be going over the dice in the system I use, and then only after that we're going to start talking about basic umpire stuff, like how to deliver screenshots and update the players on each turn. This is because Jan is going to be umpiring in today's game with me, and it's going to be in 2 hours, and I want to make sure he has all the information he needs, because he knows the basic umpire stuff. It's just that he doesn't know how to roll with my system. And after we have completed the dice thing, John can freely leave if he wants to. I don't think it's nothing that unusual. I can play it in the game. And TJ9 and Ambassador, if you guys have time, you guys can stay over and I can tell you how to do basic umpire stuff. And if you are interested, you can actually help us umpire in today's Kriegsspiel, because we might need another umpire. It is unsure right now how many people turn up.
Okay.
Okay, so let's begin. I'm going to first get the dice from this corner over here. I'm gonna copy paste them, Control C, and let's put them over here. In the this is from a multiplayer game that I hosted a few months ago, and this is the end game screenshot. It's the theme. So here we got the die, and let's get a few unit pieces here. So first off, I'm gonna start reading from the Ottovski System for system dice. So, although there are dice, you don't always have to use them. It can be good to conserve time and just play guard by deciding the outcome of combat yourself, or just rolling a basic 8 die or something like that. So remember that what you read and what I'm gonna tell you about these dice is more of a guideline than a rule. So you can freely negate some effects of the die. You can say, okay, these guys are the old guard. They're not gonna just rout because a militia unit attacked them or something like that. So the umpire has a really big role, of course, like in any Kriegsspiel game. So we have 3 kinds of dice. We have the infantry dice, we have the artillery dice, and then we have the cavalry dice. If you hover your mouse over any piece, any dice piece or any unit piece in this game, you will get more information. And if you hover the mouse on a piece for longer, you can get even more information. For example, with the battalions in the game, if you hover over the piece for longer, you can see the historical name of the unit. And this is really useful for the dice, because you will be able to see an abbreviation of what the dice mean. We also got the cheat sheet over here that I sent to a few people, and there you can, cheat sheet, you can quickly check some stuff to help you remember. But first I need to explain what exactly everything means. So in my system, unlike in, for example, KS22 Marshall system, you roll a die for each game piece on the table. So this is, of course, a guideline as well. You could just decide to not roll anything or just roll an 8-side die, but this is how it's done according to this guide. So in KS22 system, for example, you roll only 1 die for a whole combat, and that resolves it. But here, each unit, you copy paste the die for each one of them, pop, 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 like that. So let's start with the infantry dice, and first I'm gonna read about the dice in the whole. Why are they designed like this? So the dice are designed to emphasize the importance of reserve forces, cycling units and supply, have multiple lines of defense form. Units now very rarely, if ever, get totally destroyed after a firefight, emphasize the importance of timing for cavalry commanders, emphasize the importance of terrain when positioning troops, emphasize the incompatibility of Napoleonic tactics in urban environments and forests, and simulate the inaccuracy of Napoleonic era artillery at long ranges. So there are some things that we're going to come back to. But first, let's start with the infantry die. Now the infantry die, I'm expecting this lesson to maybe take a bit over an hour, explaining all the die. And for the full lesson in how to do basic umpire stuff, that's going to be taking like 2 hours. And if anyone has any questions or comments, just shout them out. So the infantry die is going to be the most confusing one to begin with, because we're going to be beginning with this one, and it's going to have a lot of symbols that I'm going to have to explain what everything means. But don't worry, the other die are going to be much faster, because much of these symbols are repeated in the other die. So let's start with something simple. So here you see this side, we've landed on a blank side, and if you hover the mouse over it, it says no effect. Well, that means no effect. So remember that these blocks and these die are abstractions of real life. So in my system, it is very important for the umpire to create immersion for the player and to be descriptive in the player updates. So, for example, if our Austrian unit here lands on this die, and the umpire has to explain to the player what is going around, the umpire can tell the player, okay, your men have delivered a well-coordinated volley, but the French don't seem to budge one bit. Something like that. The fire is in effect. So keep that in mind. Get ideas from this dive for what to say. Now let's go over to 2 new symbols here. Actually, let's start with this one. So here you got a side of the die that has some kind of black. It resembles this one. This is some kind of black and white symbol. So this side of the die says ammo low, and like I've written, emphasize the importance of reserve forces, cycling units and supply is one of the most important things, or one of the things that the dice are designed to represent. So each time a unit rolls a side of the die with that symbol, that ammo symbol, that means that the unit that rolled the die is itself going to become low on ammo, which means they're going to get this die, this token on them. So not the enemy is not going to get this token, but the friendly unit itself, the one that wrote this. And if you hover over this piece, it says low on ammo, runs out of ammo after 1 turn of combat. So this unit can still fight for another turn, but if next turn it's still fighting and it doesn't get resupplied, this token is going to go to the second state, poof, which says out of ammo, routes if faces combat. So pretty self-explanatory there. So how to resupply these ammo things? Let's say that these guys need to resupply. We have these forward ammunition trains, frontline ammunition trains, don't mind the name, there we go, now that's just the correct name, regimental frontline supply column. Usually each player has one of these, and this represents a bunch of wagons that a brigade would bring into the front line. It contains like stuff essential for a day's battle, like ammunition and water. Now, how to resupply this? If you have this normal low on ammo thing, you take 1 wheel out of this, so you go to state 2, you click 2 on it, and if they are totally out of ammo, then you need to take 2. There you go. This means the units can run out of ammo quite quickly, because there is always chance to roll on a die a side which makes you run out of ammo, or run low on ammo. So what this represents, this low ammo thing, it can literally mean that the unit is running low on ammo. So, among other things. So, remember that each turn in my system is 15 minutes. So each soldier carries about 24 to even 60 cartridges with them, or maybe more, or maybe less. It really depends on the situation. Now, in 15 minutes, you can easily, if you fire even one round per minute, you can burn through potentially half of your ammunition supply, if you're a normal rank and file. But this symbol can also symbolize other things than just low on ammo. It can symbolize a unit simply needing to rest and fall back to resupply, or to just simply rest. When my players have gotten this low ammo symbol on their units, I've described to them, oh, you see your men are becoming tired and firing blindly into the gunpowder mist. And even one time in a game I've had, or in a few times in the games when I've told them that the players themselves have started feeling bad for their men and begun falling back. So it's interesting how you can kind of play with the player's mind like a real life commander. The situation might not be as bad as he's told, but what he feels like as a commander, he sees his men are really, well, getting tired from all of this bloodbath business, and they maybe want to retreat. So yeah, that's the ammo symbol. But one more thing about it. Okay, so on the sides of the die, there are going to be things that don't apply in certain circumstances. But each time you see this low ammo symbol, each time you roll this low ammo symbol, you are going to have the unit become low on ammo. This side of the die always applies.
Question?
Any questions?
Yeah, if the unit is in the second turn, so basically out of ammo, would it by itself then retire to resupply, or is this in yours how you roll only based on the orders?
The units can automatically, if there's a second line, they can automatically switch out. It doesn't need strict orders to go and resupply or cycle. And also, if they are all fighting, you can have them resupply by themselves as well without any orders. If there's a supply column nearby, you can imagine that maybe one of the guys would come with a wagon, and while they were fighting, they would replenish their ammunition.
Yep.
So again, it's up to the umpire. Alright, so any other questions regarding ammo? Alright, so now we're gonna move on to the next thing. So, now we got another new symbol. We got the traditional ammo symbol, and then we have this explosion marker thing that kind of resembles like this, but in black and white. So if we hover over the die, it's going to say hit ammo low. Alright, so here is where the hits come in. So, if you roll this side of the die with the explosion thing, this is going to happen. You're going to put on your enemy this marker. And this marker says, shaken / disrupted / damaged 1 more and unit routes. Alright, so, like Jan and some other umpires know, there are in some games, hit and disrupt can mean different things. For example, in some systems, if you land a hit on the enemy is just going to get the whole block deleted from the game. But in this case, if you roll a hit, it's going to mean that the enemy is just suffering casualties, or they are losing cohesion. Basically, it means that the enemy is getting closer to being routed. So it can mean different things, like I've written shaken / disrupted / damage. So each time, so when you roll that side of the die, you're gonna put that on the enemy. And also, as you can see, you have this ammo symbol on the inside that explosion thing. So what do you should do when you see that ammo symbol?
Well, that's the marker for low ammo on the firing unit, right?
Exactly. So you're gonna put the ammo symbol on the unit that rolled it. Exactly. And at the same time, since you hit the enemy, you're gonna put the hit marker on the enemy. Now the hit marker, as you can see, says one more and unit routes. So let's say that there are two of these units over here firing on this one guy. Let's put some smoke here as well, since that is something we do in game. There, to signal that there's combat happening. And let's put them on that side as well. So, as you can see, this said one more and unit routes. So, this unit over here, and let's put something just irrelevant for this. Oh, they rolled a no effect. So, as you can see, this unit over here rolled a hit on the enemy. Okay, they've been hit. And they also became low on ammo themselves. And, oh, this unit as well rolled a hit on the enemy and became low on ammo on themselves. Now, if you guys hover over the token, what do you guys think is going to happen? I've only applied the results of this unit here.
Would the unit route?
Yes, exactly. So one more and unit routes. So never in games you're going to see two of these symbols. No, that's not going to be happening. Instead, what happens when a unit is hit twice, you put the token into state 3. There we go. And now this token says routed, unit loses 1 HP and routes. So this basically means that the enemy unit is disengaging, withdrawing. Basically, they are getting out of the fight, and they don't want to fight anymore. So, as you can see, it says routed unit loses 1 HP and routes. So each unit has different states on tabletop, and you can use this by pressing 1, 2, and 3. And these states are their HP in game terms. So each time a unit routes, you put them on a lower HP path. There you go. And since they are gonna route now, what we're gonna do is we're going to put them somewhere away, so they just run away really fast back into the hills. And they are actually, and let's just do the whole thing. So they're gonna keep running away until they're out of combat. So let's say in one turn they are so fast that in 15 minutes they ran away 2 grids, and now they are over here. So after a unit is routed and they are no longer in threat of combat, what is going to happen is they are naturally going to start. Well, naturally, they are likely going to start getting back ready for battle. So what you likely want to do is you want to go on the token and you press 2, and now the token on its second state, which means rallying, recovering from a rout. So this token symbolizes that the men are getting the men are gathering around. Maybe they are still tending to the wounded, but they are in the process of getting back to the fight. But they are not an effective combat unit yet. So if they are again attacked, they will likely rout again. But let's say next turn, okay, they've been rallying for turn, and next turn they're gonna go down into the first token state, which is shaken, disrupted, damage. So this symbolizes that the unit is ready to receive orders. They can fight again, but they are still a bit rattled from being defeated in a firefight. So they are really still a bit vulnerable. Now, after next turn, you could just take away the hit token, and now they can take 2 hits again before being routed. Of course, this is all up to the umpire. I had a game where players were leading landwehr units, and because they were poorly trained militia, I've had units which basically, even though they had already routed away from threat of combat, they routed for several turns, running really far away, and then only they started recovering. You can also, in some cases, just have the unit run away from the battlefield, never to be seen. You can also decide that the unit is going to be rallying for more than 1 turn, so maybe they're taking more than 15 minutes to get their men back around. Or you can decide to have the disrupt marker longer than 1 turn. Maybe the whole battle or something. Maybe it was really a shocking event. Any questions regarding that?
Yeah, I had a quick question. So I see. So it loses the disruption if it kind of holds for a turn, but does it regain the HP if it still takes another hit? Does it still count as shattered?
Okay, good question. So, no, the HP is not something that can be recovered really. Oh, well, it's up to the umpire, but normally no. So the HP, you can see that the blocks become smaller. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the unit itself has become a smaller formation, like as in they have lost so many men that they are physically a smaller formation. It will just mean that this unit has less will to fight in them, you could say. Because when a unit runs out of HP, they are going to be unrecoverable. They are going to rout away from the battle. So let's go to that next. So this unit over here.
Can I ask a quick question? So wait, they lose HP when they rout, but not when they take hits, but only when they fully rout. Is that
Yeah,
how that
exactly.
works?
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. If they take a hit, nothing happens, and when they rout, you put them on the next stage.
Okay.
So hit is more of a they are in battle and are losing men, or they may not being rattled or something. But then nothing is lost yet. But when a rout thing comes, when you have a unit rout, it could necessarily mean that no one retreats from the unit. The unit is same strength as before, but this just means that the men are less well, after you've been defeated in a firefight, you're less likely to fight for the entire day than before. So they're not as effective as before, you could say. And also this hit HP thing, it is also up to the umpire. I had instances where a unit was hit by 4 units or something, or they have been really devastated in 15 minutes or something, and I had them just straight up go to the next HP level. And perhaps when they got routed, I put them on the very last HP level. So it's again up to the umpire. So now let's go. Let's say that this unit has recovered here. They are gonna be ready to get back into the fight, and let's say that these Austrian units here have been resupplied. So doopy-doopy-doo, they're gonna march back into battle, and let's say that these are the rows in the game right now. And oh man, looks like this Austrian unit, they landed a hit on this guy, and oh, the next one landed a hit on the French guy as well, and again, they are going to be routed again. And now they're gonna go to their last HP point. And again, they're gonna become, next turn they are going to be here, next turn they're gonna be rallying. Let's say that I want to kinda simulate a unit taking longer to reform, so they're gonna be rallying the next turn as well. And now they're on their, now they only have the hit marker on them. And let's say that the player is growing impatient, so he has ordered this battalion, get back to the fight right now. And even though they haven't fully recovered from their shock, they're gonna go back into the fight. And let's say that this turn, these are the rows again. Oh man, it looks like this guy is going to be hit again, and he's already been hit once, so he's going to rout. So now so as you can see, the rout symbol says routed. Unit loses 1 HP and routs. Well, the thing is that this unit is already on its last HP, so it can't lose HP anymore. So this is where the last states of the token come in. So the next, so what you can do, this unit is no longer combat effective, of course. It's run out of HP. The men don't have any fight left in them. So what you can do is you can keep them unrouted, and you can just gradually have them run away from the battlefield into the distance as the brigade commander watches and cries. Or you can use some of the other states on this. For example, state 4 on the token means shattered / scattered, out of HP, no longer combat effect. Now this token symbolizes that there was once a combat effective unit here. So you can say that this could represent a ragged column and bunch of bodies around it. Or you could say that these are men fighting to the last man, but they're not really dealing damage to the enemy. Or just anything letting the player know there was a combat effective unit here. Like over here, for example, on the game table, in this game, General Sam Miller of the French, over here with his cavalry, he flanked a Saxon infantry division from the west while they were marching, and the Saxons were already on their last legs, and you can see the remnants of this cavalry charge here. So they are clearly something happened here, as you can see. Now onto the next. So we have the last token state: surrendered, unit routed, and overwhelmed. So this is basically self-explanatory. The everyone has surrendered. No, they don't want to die for no emperor or for any king. Also, good representation in this game. The German commander Eli Gray has taken some some Frenchmen as prisoners and is actually carrying them with him, right? So there you go. So you're free to use whatever you decide fits the best in these states. Now, you can also, here comes the umpire again, playing God. You can decide, I've also had instances where a fully healed unit or a unit on full HP just instantly goes into shattered or surrendered or routes off the field. For example, in this game, I had a French battalion be completely alone, and they were flanked from every direction by cavalry, and I just decided there's no way these men are going to be coming back to fight after this or can get out of here, and a whole battalion was basically lost in 15 minutes. Any questions regarding the tokens or anything?
Not at this time.
Alright, so let's go over to experience. Okay, never mind the plus sign right now. The plus sign, we're gonna come over to that later. It means advantage, but we're gonna come onto that later. It's a bit complicated. So experience in this game, the only way that experience has an effect on the die is it gives you another chance. It gives you more of a chance to hit the enemy. So as you can see, this side of the dice is 2 out of 3 and 3 out of 3 experience only hits. So a unit needs to be 2 experience or higher for this to count. What I do in games, but not in this one apparently, I'm going to write the experience in the unit's name. For example, this unit, let's say that they are 2 experience, so now it has 2 experience in them. So the players are not told the experience of the unit outright. They have the unit service record, etc. told to them in their briefing, but it's they're left in the dark on what the exact experience of the unit is. So let's say that this side die rolls on this one, 2 out of 3 experience, there's 2 chevrons, so this guy has 2 experience, this counts for him. But for example, if the die lands on this 3 out of 3 experience only hit, then there are 3 chevrons here, this guy only has 2 experience, not enough experience, this side of the die might as well be blank for them, because this is not going to be doing anything. Now it says there are there's also this all experience hit, which has 1 chevron. So when I'm making this die, I had 3 experience levels, 1, 2, and 3. But nowadays I only have a 4th experience level, which is 0. And those are usually units like Landwehr Militia, and I just give them the 0 experience, and they have a really low likelihood of hitting anything. Oh, not that low, but it's lower than other guys. So this one, because it has 1 chevron and this has 0 experience, this doesn't do anything for this. Any questions relate? Oh yeah. So experience. So as you can see, experience only affects the die in the hit things. You have a more of a likelihood to hit the enemy. But this is where the umpire comes in. So you can also, as an umpire, decide if a unit is part of the old guard, for example. Do we have some old guard here? Yes, we do. You can decide that old guard, because they are really high experienced. Maybe they got they should have been routed by these guys because they landed 2 hits on them. You can play guard and decide, no, the old guard is not going to get hurt by these 2 puny rank and filers, and I'm going to just negate the hits they took. So that's where the umpire comes in. You can think about how a unit would react, and if you deem the dice roll is realistic or not. So any questions relating to experience? Alright. Now let's move on to the most complicated thing, which is advantage. So as you can see, there's a lot of sides of the die with this plus symbol. And I'm gonna read from the document again. Emphasize the importance of terrain when positioning troops. Alright, so let's have an example here. Let's take these 2 infantry units here. And let's put them over here. Where's a good spot? Where's a clear hill? There. Let's put them over there. So guys, if you look at this situation over here, do you think that someone has the advantage in this scenario?
Mm-hmm.
If you think someone has the advantage, just shout which one is in a better position. Just has the advantage, simple.
Yeah, the Austrians have the higher ground.
Exactly. So advantage. So I've written. So this is really complicated for people because some of the sides of the die symbols affect the unit that rolled this side of the die, and some of them affect the unit that they're fighting against. And this is a bit of a complicated one. So in the document, in the cheat sheet, I've written advantage. Die side also applies if the enemy unit has the advantage. So note the words also and enemy. So in this case, let's say that the dice rolls are these. And this is a 3D map, so it's a bit difficult to get this guy. So this die belongs to that unit in this case. It's a bit difficult to get them to stay. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So, if this guy, French guy, is at a disadvantage, he's in a worse situation, disadvantage. If he rolls this side of the die, this normal side of the die with the hit and ammo low, it's not going to be doing anything to the enemy who has the advantage. But if he rolls the side of the die with this advantage thing on it, then it's going to hit the enemy. So as you can see, not all sides of the die have this. Not all sides of the die have this plus symbol, which means if the enemy has the advantage, you have a less of a likelihood to roll a hit on the enemy. And I must note that these plus sign advantage hits, I call them advantage hits, as you can see from the die. These plus sign things, they also apply as normal hits. So this guy, who doesn't need to care about the enemy having the advantage, this guy on the hill here, he's already in a good spot. He doesn't need to care about the enemy having advantage. He can roll the advantage hit and hit the enemy, and he can also roll the normal hit and he can hit the enemy. So as you can see, because the other guy doesn't have the advantage compared to the other person, he is less likely to hit the enemy, while this guy can roll anything he wants. Okay, so any questions? I'm gonna do a test about it because this is like really complicated. Any questions?
So I assume advantage really comes down to the umpire's decision making, because of course that can be many different circumstances.
Exactly. So yeah.
That's my question.
Yeah. Yes, it's up to the umpire. So the terrain is the most usual one, but you can also bring in something like units being fresh and the other one being tired. So let's say that these both are on even ground now. But let's say that this French unit here, he's been fighting for the whole battle. The men are getting kind of tired. Meanwhile, this guy over here, he just joined along this. He just marched along this river and is completely fresh. Would you guys say in this scenario one side has the advantage over the other? The answer is yes, because this guy is tired and this guy is fresh. So this is where reserves can come into play. So in Napoleonic combat, reserves were a big thing. You didn't want to commit your reserve too early. You wanted to bring it at the correct time when the enemy was distracted and the men were growing tired, and you wanted to use it to drive home the victory. The difference between fresh troops who have not faced combat and those who have been fighting is really remarkable. Any questions? Okay, now we're gonna do a quick exam. So guys, you are umpires right now, and these guys are in combat. What do you guys do? Just use the die and use all the tokens and resolve this.
So each one rolls an infantry die.
Forget the button.
A very easy result.
R.
Thank you.
It's R there.
Just hover, don't grab the die, just hover over it and then hit the R. Yep.
Sorry, I don't play very much tabletop.
No worries.
Yeah. Alright, so what do you guys do now?
So we should determine who is at advantage here. Since there's no clear terrain difference, it would come down to the status of the infantry and how long they've been fighting.
Let's say that
or if
both of these sides are equally as fresh. First contact of the day.
so this unit wouldn't hit, would they still get an ammo low?
Or wouldn't they still hit? Isn't it just that if one side has advantage, only the advantage sides?
Exactly.
hit?
Exactly.
So the hit would still take
I
effect
see.
as well.
Okay.
And so
There
then
we go.
it gets disrupted.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. Roll again.
So for advantage, it's not a requirement. You still hit.
Yeah. It's just good. It's just good. You will not suffer from it. And let's say both of these are 2 experience.
Okay. Cool.
So I take a hit, and you take your second hit.
Yeah, so then this unit is going to route, I don't know where to get a route symbol
You
from.
can just use the
Just press
token.
numbers. Yeah.
And
Press
then,
numbers on the token.
yeah, hover over it and hit the 3.
Oh, I was trying to generate a token from somewhere. Wait, but does this... Oh, I see, the token itself here. Excellent, okay. So this unit would now route and start to run towards safety. And wait, so I saw you were also flipping these. Does this symbol mean that it is no longer in formation, or does this represent like column?
Yeah,
It's
Or
column.
were you just using this for routing units for
It's
clarity?
column. It's column.
Okay.
And
It would also take an HP loss.
yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah. So then it's gonna run away somewhere, however far it goes.
Alright, so you guys passed the test. Very nice job. I'm gonna say that. You guys know that stuff well enough. So, oh yeah, one more thing about the infantry die. Now, it landed right on the thing I want. So this says hit apply only in bad terrain. So I've written in the document emphasize the incompatibility of Napoleonic tactics in urban environments and forests. So first thing, linear warfare, you are maneuvering these men in formations up to thousands of men, and they're firing inaccurate guns, and it's hard to get people to move around, especially with all the gunpowder smoke. People really, the commanders of the time really preferred fighting on plains, as it was a good ground to maneuver these large formations. So urban terrain and thick forests were despised to fight in pretty much. It really would slow the combat down. I'm from Finland, and if you guys ever look up the Finnish War of 1808 and 1809, go to any battle, and Finland is basically one big forest, especially in this period. And if you go to any battle, casualties, 5 people, and the battle took like 7 hours, and they were firing constantly and low casualties, and it took ages for any side to push out the other one.
Wow.
So let's say that these guys over here are in... Where is a big forest that is on even ground? So there we go, they're in this forest over here. So let's say that these guys are in so-called bad terrain. So as you can see from the side of the die, it has an exclamation point. Okay, the exclamation point, don't care about that. It's a bit misleading, I think. I should have maybe not included in there, so don't think about that. But you have this hit marker, and inside it you have a house and a tree. So that signifies bad terrain. And it says hit apply only in bad terrain, only in bad terrain. So if both of the sides are in so-called bad terrain, they will have to land this side of the die to roll a hit on the enemy. So if they roll, for example, a advantage hit, this might as well be blank for them, because it's not going to have anything to do with it. When you're both in bad terrain, both sides are suffering equally. Most of it. Or as an umpire, you could say if these guys are like really on a hill, you can maybe have the situation be a bit different. But usually, if they're both in bad terrain, everything sucks. So that might as well be blank for them. And the only side of the die that applies is going to be the ones with the hit marker and a house and a tree inside. So this means that only 3 sides of the die out of 12 will do a hit on the enemy. So this means that combat in forest really slows down, just like in real life. And it's quite fun to watch, to be honest.
And how would you represent one of the units being light infantry, for example? Would you say they hit regardless?
Light infantry, in my game, light infantry companies like Jaegers and stuff, they are quite abstracted. Well, there's no pieces for them. You can say that every battalion has skirmishers in them. And most of the time, units that were light infantry battalions would still act like normal infantry. For example, the French chasseurs of the guard and the other chasseurs of the guard, the light infantry, they would in battle really act like normal line infantry. So they are not really. I have not made. I don't have skirmisher pieces. I don't represent skirmisher companies or anything like that at this scale. And if there's a battle going on, there's likely going to be some skirmishers involved in it, anyways.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I was just wondering about the battalions. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So. Now we also have this side of the die, which is rout only hit if bad terrain. Now this is a pretty good side of the die to roll. Because, okay, remember the text, rout only hit if bad terrain. So in bad terrain, this will not make the enemy rout, it will only count as a hit. So it at least counts as something. But if you guys are both fighting on even ground and you roll this, you're gonna rout the enemy in 1 dice roll. Very nice. Very good roll. And you can say that this die represents, a grenadier company inside the battalion. The officer decided to march right into front of the enemy and just bayonet charge them without firing a single shot, and they just routed the whole battalion. So, any questions regarding any questions?
So the rough terrain die, and for example, this one here on flat terrain, it is also still a hit.
No,
right?
it's hit
It...
only in bad terrain. It will do it. Yeah.
So if they were, if the Austrian unit rolled this, for example, it would have no effect.
Exactly.
In this situation.
Yeah, it might as well be blank in this case. Good question. Yep. Yeah, the text is really useful. Hit apply only in bad terrain.
Yes.
And also, about the bad terrain, I just remembered, you can also use it in different circumstances as an umpire. For example, I had this one game where a Prussian brigade was entrenched, or quote-unquote entrenched. They had taken positions inside a town which had a medieval fort surrounding it. So they had pretty good cover. And I made it so that the French attacking these well-positioned Prussians had to roll this hit apply in bad terrain die. Meanwhile, the Prussians themselves could roll whatever they want.
Okay.
And in that case, the Prussians really rolled badly, and they were still pushed out of the place. So it's like sometimes, well, they were Landwehr, so like, I guess it fits the thing.
So for fortifications, you could count it as bad terrain instead of an advantage position?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
If it's like a significant
heavy fortifications.
Yeah, usually there isn't really fortifications in these games. But sometimes you do have like some medieval fort on these Western German maps. But the games that I play, usually the soldiers, neither side has had enough time to prepare to build any fortifications, and Napoleonic era fortifications are kind of difficult to build because only the sappers in a division or something have actual entrenchment tools. So you can't really just dig a foxhole when no one has a spade.
Here's another question. If you have one unit, say like this French unit is in a forest, and this unit here is fighting them from the clear, would you ever have a situation where the unit in the rough terrain is less effective because they have trouble forming up in that rough terrain? Or would they only get the advantage of, or well, I shouldn't say advantage because that's different, but being in rough terrain makes it harder to hit them?
Yeah, it's up to the umpire really. About like forming up in rough terrain, there are, as you can see from this sheet, there are movement movement negatives when you are in when you are in forest, for example. I would have explained that to you before, but right now we're going first over the die. So, yeah, that's about like let's say that terrain has a big impact on unit speed.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to
as an umpire. Maybe just a note: as an umpire, you could, of course, decide to say this is a line. Let's say that's a line battalion. So now, by moving through all these woods here, they become disrupted. For example.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. You can do that. Sorry. So, sorry again. So, there is no artillery ruler on this module. 1 sec, I'm gonna have to load the version of this module which is not the end game screen. So 1 sec. And while I do that, I'm gonna read. Oh wait, this is the wrong module. Oh wait. Oh well, it's the same. It's close enough. It's not the exact same version. So while we wait and move on to artillery, I'm going to read about the artillery. So simulate the inaccuracy of Napoleonic era artillery at long ranges is something I've written. So let's get back on the board, or the die over here, and let's take an Austrian artillery piece and a... Let's say that they're shooting at Frenchmen again. So the artillery die has a lot of same things that were mentioned before, but it's a little bit different. So, I'm gonna have to angle myself like this. So, on the artillery die, you're actually going to see some text written on the sides of the die itself. For example, you have close. So, the kind of text you are going to be seeing is close, medium, and max. And that means the artillery range. So here, for example, you have a route if close, and okay, I'm gonna go over the text later about what this die has in its description. But here you can see it's a route and close. So for this side of the die to count, the enemy unit needs to be close, as it says, and if it is close, it's going to route. So you're going to see in this die that most of the close hits or close rows are routes, and this could portray in real life the enemy infantry charging headfirst into enemy artillery and they're firing canister, and that is not a good idea. So you usually want to have attack the enemy artillery from the side, and if it doesn't have time to move around according to the umpire, you can just roll them. Roll them as in like destroy them. Mm-hmm. So the range, for calculating the range, we use this artillery ruler that is part of ancient Kriegsspiel. And I must mention, in this module right now we're using this artillery ruler is not really up to scale. It's a bit too small. It should be one of these is this big part is 400 paces, so it's more like 300. But anyways, we're going to use it despite that. So when an artillery unit is firing and you want to figure out the range, you use this ruler. So you can see it has 6-pounder and 7-pounder batteries on the other side, and on the other side you have 10-pounder and 12-pounder batteries. So the 6-pounders are, well, light artillery, like here it has written on the piece, and heavy artillery is 12-pounders. And since you have 3 ranges, what was it, close, medium and max, you are going to use your own brain to decide what is actually close range and what is medium range and what is max range. So basically you're going to be dividing this into 3 in your head or something like that. It's a bit vague according to the umpire. So if this guy is over here attacking this guy, and let's say that I count small canisters, close range, these guys are going to get routed. Poof, poof. Yeah, there we go. So simple stuff there. And let's move on to not so simple stuff. Okay, there we go. So now we got a advantage hit for the artillery. And you can see this doesn't have any text on it, which means this applies for all ranges. So this is a pretty sweet one to roll them. An advantage for artillery, you could say that advantage is a unit being in kind of protective terrain. For example, they could be behind a hill, so you can see the top of their heads, but it's still quite difficult to hit them. So in this case, you need to roll this advantage hit to hit the enemy. And you could say that thickly wooded areas is especially good protection against artillery. Any questions about that? No. Okay.
Nope.
Now let's move on to the next thing. So, you can see that this piece has this side of the die has a new symbol on it. And it's this clock symbol. And it has a 15 written on it, and it takes up space of a quarter. So 15 minutes. So the thing about Napoleonic artillery was that the gunners really started to, the accuracy of the guns really started to decrease over time, due to the fact that the artillery really creates a lot of smoke, and it really obstructs vision, which meant that after extended periods of time, gunners would literally begin firing blind. And also, firing artillery is rough work, and it would also exhaust the men, reducing their effect. And what good Napoleonic artillery commanders would do is they would relocate their artillery, which was something the French, as far as I know, were pretty good at, to make sure that they couldn't have their artillery grounds be full of smoke and they could actually see stuff, and they would also stop firing so they could have the smoke evaporate and could have the men rest for a bit. Now, so what this means in game is you are less likely to hit the enemy if you have been firing for longer than 15 minutes with artillery, which is basically 1 turn, because 1 turn is 15 minutes. So as you can see in this die, it says hit also if fired for more than 15 minutes. So if your artillery gun has been firing for longer than 15 minutes, you are going to have to roll a side of the die with this clock symbol on it. If it doesn't have the clock symbol, it will not count if you've been firing for longer than 15 minutes. Now this 15 minutes thing is kind of vague. You could have it in situations like maybe this artillery gun just unlimbered at the end of the last turn and it got to fire, but it hasn't really been firing for 15 minutes worth next turn. So you can say, okay, this guy gets to fire two turns in a row without having to care about that 15 minutes time. So. Let's do an okay. First thing I'm gonna say next. Okay, you also have this hit symbol with 2 in it, and that means 2 hits. So there are 4 to 8 guns in battery in these games. So if you roll that thing, you can deliver 2 hits. So if there are 2 units, you can do like that, bam bam, or you can even do it like this. Let's say that cannonball ricochet off the ground onto the guys in the back column or back line, or you can have it so if there's only 1 unit or you want to be devilish, you can have it be basically routed in 1 dice roll. So let's do a quick exam about this, and while I'm gonna before that I am going to stretch this a bit so it's maybe not that short ranged. Yeah, that's good enough here.
Yeah.
And let's get a heavy foot artillery for this one, a 12-pound. So let's say that the situation is the following over here. So these French guys over here, they went over here this turn, and this artillery guy is going to start firing on them, of course. So what do you guys do? Start rolling.
So I would assume they're beyond close range. Just estimating by that, so this would have no effect.
You maybe want to. Well, I like to use the ruler just in case, but you can of course eyeball it as an umpire.
Oh yeah, wait. So these are 12-pounders. Yeah, so I would say that is out of range.
No.
So what do you guys do?
So that's no effect?
Yeah.
Or...
Yeah.
Mhm.
Alright, so yeah, they were out of range, and you can go ahead and roll again. They're just at the same place, they're not even firing, they've just been ordered to stand there.
That looks better.
Yeah.
Medium 2 should hit.
Yeah, and it resolves 2 hits on these 2 blocks.
Oh, but guys, something is missing. How long has the artillery been firing according to each turn is 15 minutes.
So it's been firing.
Oh yeah, so if this were on the if this had the 15-minute sign, then that would be the effect, but since it's not, then is that another no effect?
Yep.
Okay. So how many sides have that 15-minute marker out of this?
I've actually written it, so it's a bit complicated here. I can't be bothered to read all the odds in this. But if
I can find it later, I'm sure.
yeah, there's a good chunk of it. But basically, it's fun. In real life, Napoleonic artillery at long ranges and or overall, Napoleonic artillery is. They are like in Borodino, the artillery was devastating because there was a lot of it. But overall, the Napoleonic artillery can be more of a psychological weapon. And it's fun that in games that happens as well, players will fear artillery and be really scared of them, even though they might not hit anything many times in a row. So it's quite interesting. Yeah. Go ahead
That's
and.
interesting.
Oh, okay. And now you rolled this one. So what happens?
So here it would get one hit on one of these guys they're firing upon.
Yep.
Even if they have advantage.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, you guys got that. That's simple stuff. And now let's move on to the last part, which is cavalry. Let me get some Austrian cavalry over here, and a and a French hussars. Well, there you go. So cavalry. So I've written about cavalry, emphasize the importance of timing for cavalry commanders, and I've also written briefly. Napoleonic cavalry combat was short and sweet. So, first thing you're gonna note about the cavalry die is that there are a lot of routes in this die, except for that one. So,
I had to stand up to deal with a unruly rabbit.
okay, so as you can see in this cavalry die, there are a lot of routes. And thing with Napoleonic cavalry, well, there wasn't really necessarily much close quarters fighting, even if cavalry charged, since the enemy unit would likely break before the cavalry reached them, since bunch of men running on horseback at you is really spooky sight. Now, we're gonna go straight to advantage with cavalry, because it is slightly different. So let's say that this cavalry unit has been ordered to charge this infantry unit. And they're just sitting over here, both are looking at each other, and the cavalry's gonna charge them. Do you guys think the either side has any advantage over the other?
The infantry's gonna shoot them as they come in.
Yeah, exactly. So cavalry is kind of interesting in this aspect, because if this was just both infantry, no one has like terrain advantage or anything, and they're both fresh. But with cavalry, as I wrote, emphasize the importance of timing for cavalry commanders. The cavalry is used to to make to drive victory home or something like that. So cavalry commanders would try their best to not charge an enemy who is somewhat prepared or not distracted. So in real life, if this cavalry unit was charged these infantry head on, the infantry would get to fire their muskets likely. It would spook the horses, and they would be charging right into bayonets facing them. So in this case, it would also of course be rolling for infantry each time there's a fighting chance for them. But in this case, the cavalry, because they are charging head on and the enemy is prepared. You could even say because there's a river in the middle of this is really difficult.
Oh yeah.
John actually charged across the river. This game was very cool. It was with the French cuirassiers, lucky man. If you roll this side of the die, it doesn't count because you don't have the advantage thing. But if you roll this with the plus symbol, now you're gonna rout the enemy.
Okay.
So there's that. So, but if the enemy was maybe changing formation, you could say that changing formation shows some weakness. Men are huddling around. Maybe they're maneuvering into different position. Then you don't need the advantage. Or definitely, if the enemy is distracted and fighting with another unit somewhere, then that's your time to shine, and you don't need any advantage. The thing also with pieces in this game, as you can see, infantry has 3 states. They have 3 HP, 1, 2, and 3. But cavalry and artillery have only 2.
Mm-hmm.
So cavalry Both. Well, you need to. They're a bit less beefier than infantry. You need to be more careful with cavalry, especially. You don't want to charge for nothing. Just like a real life commander, timing is very important for you. And yeah, okay, let's move on to the different stuff on the cavalry die. So here we have a kind of interesting cavalry die. It says rout if versus advantage only hit. So what do you guys think that means?
So if the enemy doesn't, if the cavalry is not at disadvantage, it will rout the enemy. If it is at disadvantage, it will only resolve a hit on the enemy.
Yeah, exactly. So what would you do in this case? They're both looking at each other, and the cavalry wrote that.
So they would get a hit.
Yeah,
They'd get
exactly.
up to here and be in their face.
Oh, exactly. Oh, sorry, my fault.
Somebody was celebrating the cavalry.
There's much fanfare with the charge.
So would they charge and then would they just be up there, or would they be in the process of pulling back? Like, how would that resolve? Like, I don't understand. I'm not I wouldn't say as huge of a Napoleonic warfare history buff as other players in the group. So would they like hit and get mixed up in it, or would they charge and then begin falling back?
So that really depends again. I mean, a turn here is 15 minutes, so you could easily say they sort of charge in and then scuttle out. You could also say, given the situation that there is this small creek here, that they even have difficulties getting across there, and now they are sort of stuck in this situation, charged in, and they have this creek or whatever behind them, so it sort of will be hard for them to get out again. So you could say, okay, this is now they should have rolled much better than they did. They did the hit, but yeah, the enemy is staying there in the position and they have a hard time to get out again. That's up to the umpire. I would probably say, okay, they sort of kind of get out, but not as far as they normally would.
There's a chance they could still get shot again next turn.
Yeah, and you could even apply a disruption for that. In some systems, you see that if cavalry charges in, they just get disrupted by default, which would not then impact them for the combat, which in this system is the same, but obviously afterwards they need to take some rest and reform their ranks.
Okay.
But yes, in 15 minutes a lot can happen, a lot of movement can happen there.
And so this scale, I suppose each of these infantry units is a battalion size. Is that the usual scale? That I have yet to actually take part in any of the Napoleonic Kriegsspiels of the IKS group. I've only done a couple in the World War II group thus far, and then now this the Halo one, which is sci-fi and very strange.
Yeah, we started off with a system that was based on the so-called brigade system, which was based on American Civil War combat, and that sort of had abstracted units in like making up the brigade. So let's say 3 units, whatever those units would be, and with getting more detailed about Napoleonic combat, we mostly have a piece is a battalion or a squadron for cavalry. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Alright, so any questions while I was gone or anything?
Oops, what happened now? Did you move the map?
All the pieces fell off. Yeah, no questions. We were discussing how the cavalry would pull back after making their charge.
Yeah, and that's a good one. I usually, if the I also what I do in games is I have morale effects kinda snowball. So if one unit in a line got routed, I'm going to have it so that the unit near it is going to get some disruption as well. And if if the cavalry unit wasn't able to rout all the units, and there's still someone left, there's also a chance that that one unit is going to be able to spook away the enemy cavalry.
And question on cavalry combat in general. Do you apply disruption for cavalry after them charging in?
Yeah, sometimes I just ripple a disruption kind of everywhere. But yeah, it's up to the umpire.
And would you say that was what we just discussed? Would you say within 15 minutes the cavalry can go in and pull out again? I mean, based on the situation, we had this Greek thingy here, or if they routed the unit and disrupted this one, would they go after them? I mean, just like they're charging in, and it's hard to get a squadron of cavalry to stop and reform. Would they just go in, or would they turn and hit these guys?
It's really up to the umpire here.
Yeah.
Like, you could say that these guys were valiant. They decided they are old guard, so maybe this guy wasn't really spooked that much by this other guy falling back.
Yeah.
Or you can say these are absolute chads and the players leading from the front and they do some like amazing maneuver warfare. Alright. So now let's move on to cavalry types if there were no other questions. So, first experience. Experience works pretty much like other experience. So, they are... Okay, I've written 2 out of 3 and 3 out of 3 experience only advantage hit. So this is kind of interesting. I'm wondering what I meant, because here it's... instead of a hit symbol, it's a route symbol, but I've written hit. So, I guess pick your choice there. If you have enough experience, is this one a hit or a route? And of course, if you have only 1 experience or lower, then it's 0. It's nothing for you. But yeah, no experience not works as anything else. Then you have cavalry types. So cavalry types are kind of like experience in the die. So it gives you there's 3 categories of cavalry. Like there's 3 experience plus the 0 one. So basically. There's light cavalry, medium cavalry, and heavy cavalry, and the light cavalry is quote-unquote the worst in combat. They are the lowest category. But then you have the heavy cavalry, which are basically charging is the only thing they do. So they are really good. So this is this kind of to encourage as well that the players to use cavalry like they would real life, because light cavalry is not necessarily on the battlefield going to be always just charging. They have a lot of more other tasks, for example, just scouting and screening the friendly formations. And that's why, like in normal Kriegsspiel, the light cavalry can move a few grids faster than heavy cavalry. For example, light cavalry is 8 grids and heavy cavalry is 6 grids movement speed. Also, I count lancers as light cavalry as well. So this is like hussars and lancers. These blocks is what you could think they mean. So lancers, unfortunately, don't get any bonuses in the die or anywhere. Cue Marshall like laughing, but basically, you can also, if you want, you can play guard and maybe give lancers some bonus. It's up to you. But basically, both of these guys are light cavalry, so the lowest type of cavalry in terms of combat effectiveness. So if you look at the die here, you can see that this is a advantage all cavalry types, and it has a nice lance there, and it also has a light cavalry saber. So you can see that this is clearly light cavalry. Then you go to the next cavalry type, which has advantage hit, medium and heavy cavalry only written on it, and it has a dragoon helmet and a nice carbine. So that is clearly dragoons or higher, which is these guys over here, with the more of a thick line there. Of course, Napoleonic combat, dragoons really at this time were not being used as infantry anymore. They would still have their carbines, but they were used. Some people, especially the Austrians, saw them as heavy cavalry. But I have not had a player try to dismount dragoons yet. But if they are going to dismount, it's up to the umpire how to resolve that, or how to have them work as infantry. Maybe not the best type of infantry. And also light cavalry, some of them would also have carbines as well, like these French chevaliers, mounted hunters would have their carbines. So you could theoretically have those be able to be dismounted as well. Then we have the last cavalry type, advantage hit, heavy cavalry only. So these guys, if they roll anything, they can medium cavalry, they can do it. If they roll light cavalry, they can do it. If they roll their own, only they can do it. So the cuirassiers charging is their thing, and they are quite spooky on the battlefield, like Jan proved in the Leipzig game. And finally, we have one more thing, and that is squares and forests and towns with cavalry. So first off, cavalry doesn't like all kinds of terrain. Imagine moving hundreds or even thousands of horses in a forest and off-road. It's basically impossible. No one in real life really did that ever. Horses can break their legs on uneven ground, hard to get them to move rapidly in large formations especially. It's just something that commanders of the time didn't do, and I would, if a player decides to do that, you need to give him an essay on like, this would not be a smart thing to do, which you learned in training, but if they still want to do it, just have them move like 0.02 grids a turn off-road in a forest. Also towns and urban terrain, just imagine trying to charge across a street. There's buildings everywhere, it's hard to maneuver your cavalry anywhere, and if you're charging an infantry, they can literally go into a house and you can't do anything. So if a cavalry unit is charging against a unit inside this so-called bad terrain, like urban terrain or forests, they are going to have to roll this side of the die for them to be able to do anything. So 1 out of 12 chance. You also see in the die it has a box with a shackle in it, and it has and the text says also, route also in forest, town / square. And that means if enemy unit has formed a square, which we do have a marker for, but over here. If a unit has formed square, then you're gonna have to roll this side of the die for them to be able to do anything. There's a saying that 1 out of 100 times a square will beat off will defeat an enemy cavalry charge. In real life, it was maybe 1 in a 12 chance. It wasn't that bad. And also, you can think of cavalry as like you can think of squares or as maybe in this game they are not always perfect squares. Like everyone is in textbook formation. It could also mean that everyone is huddled together and not that really ready to face the enemy charge. Squares are also kind of a question mark. It's a bit of a vague thing. You can beat the enemy cavalry without forming a square. Oh my god, my cat is yelling so much right now. Holy crap. Yeah. But with squares and the cat yelling, I think this concludes the die part of this School of the Umpire. So, and we have only 30 minutes till the game begins. I think I have time to like explain the first time. Explain if you want Jen and Ambassador how to do screenshots and all kinds of other stuff. But it's been already 1.5 hours. Anyone have any questions or anything?
I have a very quick question, although this is less future but more historical. Were squares formed at the company level at that time?
No.
Or were they at the time? Like, how was that done? I don't actually know.
So it depends on the time and the nation, the doctrine. French, for example, they tended to do, after the experience in Egypt, they tended to do battalion squares in combination with sort of, regimental squares, whatever that would be, or brigade squares more likely, and set them up opaque so that the fire arcs could support each other and create death zones.
Okay.
Others would do, for example, the Austrians most likely, because they tended to have very big battalions. They tended to do battalion mass, which is not a square as such, but they are just closing in the ranks of the battalion. Then the outer folks just turn to the outside and poke their bayonets. And in fact, that's sort of equally effective as the usually known hollow square against cavalry, because cavalry doesn't like to charge into a mass of people. So that's also something the other nations did at some points if they didn't have the time to form a perfect square, although trained units could do that within 2 minutes. So you also see French units doing sort of battalion mass. And it's also, that's another thing, and hard to sort of implement in our games. Squares, sometimes you read, when you read the battle reports, you hear, and then the brigade formed square and we retired out of the combat. And now you think, how the heck would they sort of be able to retire in a hollow square out of a combat situation? That's in no way possible. You can't move the square around. So that would also be just like a mass brigade formation where all the battalions close up ranks, and then together the whole brigade closes up, and they sort of just try to move out and not lose their companies scattered around the field, which makes them, of course, highly vulnerable against artillery and stuff, but sort of protects them against cavalry and quick moving units.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
But yeah, I'm gonna go to the bathroom now. Well, there's still time before the game, but I think, okay, we got right now 3 umpires who should be alright with the system. That's including me, of course. And I think
How many players do we expect?
We have, I think, 14 people who have clicked interested, and that's 11 players, because we have also input as well. And we'll see how many people we get. If there are more than 11, we're gonna do 3 players per umpire ratio, of course. But if there are more players, I think we can have one of the players be an umpire, and we can just roll for them. And I'll be overseeing. Well, you guys can roll the. Oh yeah, and I should tell you, Jan, that with this system, as soon as you get orders, you just move the pieces and start resolving combat. There is no real umpire turn. They're kind of intermixed, and that's what allows us to have turns last under 15 minutes in total.
Okay,
so it's really
an umpire is taking care of 2 opposing formations then, I guess?
Yeah, it's according to the situation.
Yeah.
You can quickly agree that okay, let's you roll for your side and I roll for my side, or one guy decides for everything.
Yeah.
And of course, also like if you're not doing anything, just come on over to the Umpire channel and ask if anyone needs any help.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I've done a lot of playing recently, so I would be happy to umpire. But if you have enough umpires, I'll play.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. So Gen TJ9, you haven't umpired before at all, right?
I've umpired for a World War II game, but Tan did most of the hand holding in that. I really, it was like a 1v1. I haven't done much at all, actually.
Okay. Okay, so, well, there's not that much to it. As an umpire, I want you to be really descriptive. Like, I think it's a bit boring to only say like, "Oh, you matched here." Like, really describe the scenery and all the senses and everything. You don't need to say more than a few sentences, if even that, and it will make the player enjoy the game much more. It's basically just you're a dungeon master, and you can just like, oh yeah.
Gotta put the window dressing on.
Yeah, you can just pull shit out of your ass and just like make up stuff in your mind. Like I've told like 10 players that they're passing a German medieval town or something like that. It looks like you can see like a medieval castle.
Yeah, and at this point, the residents of the town are like out and looking at the infantry.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's blue-eyed girls just like.
They're concerned
So-
that a
Yeah.
cannon's gonna go through their house.
Yeah. So you then obviously give verbal reports rather than written, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What you do in my system, I don't remember. It's been a while since I played in anyone else's live game. Well, I haven't played in my live games. I just like umpire them, but that's like playing for me, I guess. So, what you do is when a turn begins, you send each one of your players a picture report and the screenshot, and of course a time update. And after you have sent each player that thing, you go to each one of their channels, and you one by one describe the scene to the player. And when you have described the scene to the player, you go to the next one. And when you have done that, you go to the next one. And by the time you finish with the last person, the first person you describe the scene to verbally might already be ready to give his orders verbally. And if no one is ready, you can and you have nothing to do, just hop onto the umpire channel, and you can ask fellow umpires if they need any help with anything or something.
All right.
But usually,
No, go ahead, please.
Usually players don't take that long to get orders, really, or to give orders. And if it's done verbally, it's much faster than by text. So that is very much encouraged.
So I do have an issue with my screenshots. For some reason, I can't do a freedom snip. Like I do the Windows Shift. This is more of like a tech thing, and we can go over this if I end up umpiring. But that is the one issue that I keep running into. I don't know why it doesn't work.
Do you have a Windows PC?
Yes.
Okay, and it's like Windows 10, right?
Yep.
Okay. Do you, when you open the Shift S screenshot thing, do you see the freeform option at the top part of your screen? Do you know like where you're looking?
If I hit Window Shift S on my computer, right?
Yeah.
It just moves down on the map. So it just like scrolls me down. I can share you my screen and I'll show you what I mean.
Yeah, go ahead. Maybe it could sound like you're pressing S first and then everything else.
No, I swear to God, I'm doing Windows and.
Yeah, PCs are weird.
I wouldn't lie to you. I believe.
Yeah. Have you tried turning it off and on?
Here, 1 second. Let me unplug my computer. I'll tell you how it goes.
Yeah.
So you see here, I go Window Shift S, and here we go.
Yeah.
Vindictus, is here. He does not have a mic, but would like to play. It should be his first game, I think, with us.
Yeah, that's completely fine. Yeah, proceeds to leave.
That's fine. Goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye. Yeah.
My planet needs me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe it's some kind of setting on my computer that it's not turned on. But I don't understand why it doesn't work.
So, how have you taken screenshots in the past? Have you just taken picture of the whole screen?
F12 and then I have to edit it. But in the past, I wasn't able to take screenshots effectively because, in other games, what I do is if I'm gonna give an order in a play-by-post, I take a whole screenshot and then I bring it into Canva, which is a free photo editing, and I just use that because I can draw lines on that much better. But in this, I can't do. For some reason, I can't do the Windows Shift S. I don't know why. Maybe I'll just investigate it. But that's not an issue you guys have dealt with before, is it?
It's a new one for me.
Okay, well.
Yeah, it's maybe in your I'm just googling. It's maybe in your computer options. There's some wacky key combination that makes it so it's not enabled.
Yeah, there seems to be a setting under system notifications.
And I'm gonna go to the bathroom and you guys can try to solve this.
And you need to
I'm gonna head out,
this.
But thank you very much for the lesson on how the dice system work.
Oh yeah, I heard that before. Yeah, if you wanna ever umpire, just hit me up or.
Yeah, I don't have that much time later today, but one of these times I would love to try it out. So yeah.
Great.
Sounds good. I also have my own Kriegsspiel campaign right now going on, so you can join us and umpire in that if you really want, but it's really time consuming. But yeah, if you ever wanna umpire in my live games, come on in. I'm gonna now run to the bathroom.
Bye.
Cool.
You were
I'm gonna head out now, but also nice meeting you, Gen 2J9. You're Captain Steve Stacks, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, very nice.
Alright, so that ends the School of the Umpire for today. Also SpielleiterInnen-Ausbildung für heute abgeschlossen, auch wenn wir noch nicht über Bewegung und solche Dinge gesprochen haben. Die Würfel waren jetzt erstmal das Wichtigste. So we did only talk about the dice system for now. And not so much about movement and stuff, but that's usually basically the same as in other systems as well. I'm gonna take a short break of 15 minutes, then we are starting the Open Saturday game, which will be hosted by Otto today using his system. I'll be assisting him, and I'll be online with the stream in 15 minutes again. See you then.